This woman says she used to be a traffic police officer in Equatorial Guinea. She also says she later met Baltasar, and eventually, they ended up having a sexual relationship. However, the woman's husband found out about the affair. For her safety, we chose not to show the actual video in which she shares her testimony about how she met Baltasar. Still, here's what she shared with us. Listen to how it all happened.
I never thought my life would turn out this way. I had been married for 7 years, working as a traffic police officer in Malabo. My days were routine: hot sun, long hours, managing reckless drivers. My marriage, once filled with love and excitement, had slowly dulled into something mechanical. We talked less, argued more, and the passion we once had became a distant memory. It all started one rainy afternoon. The streets were slick, and accidents were common. I was directing traffic when a black government car collided with a delivery van right at my post. I rushed over, blowing my whistle, trying to make sense of the scene. That's when I saw him, Baltasar Ngonga. I recognized him immediately. Everyone did. He was the powerful head of the National Financial Investigation Agency, known for his sharp suit and sharper mind. He was calm amidst the chaos, speaking in a low, commanding voice. When our eyes met, something shifted. He smiled, and it wasn't just polite, it lingered. I helped him through the formalities, and instead of brushing me off like most officials did, he stayed, talked, and even joked a little. He asked for my number, in case of official follow-up, but deep down we both knew it was for something more. The messages started that evening. First about the accident, then about anything and everything. We met again, by accident, for coffee, then dinners followed. I tried to resist, God knows I did, but I was drawn to him. His confidence, the way he listened to me like I mattered, it all felt intoxicating compared to the coldness I had at home. One night, after too many stolen glances and too much wine, it happened. In a quiet hotel by the coast, with the sound of the waves crashing outside, I crossed a line I swore I never would. I cheated on my husband. Baltasar made me feel alive again. For months we lived in this secret world, hidden texts, whispered meetings, hotel rooms filled with guilt and desire. I loved the danger, the thrill of being wanted. But I also hated myself for the lies I had to tell every day. Eventually, the weight of it all became too much. Secrets have a way of surfacing, no matter how carefully you bury them. My marriage crumbled. And as for Baltasar, he remained an untouchable figure in his world, and I was just a reckless mistake he'd risked everything for. In the end, I lost more than I gained. But for a while, I tasted a life I thought I had lost forever. When I met Baltasar, it was one of those thick, humid afternoons when the air itself felt heavy and the clouds hung low over Malabo like they were just waiting to crack open. I remember being in a foul mood that day. The morning shift had been brutal, and I hadn't slept well the night before. My marriage was on the rocks. My husband and I had fought again about something stupid, dirty laundry or bills, I can't even remember. I felt drained, angry, and restless. I was stationed at one of the busiest intersections in the city, near the ministry buildings. Traffic was insane, horns blaring, people shouting, the usual chaos. The rain had started to fall, light at first, then faster, smearing oil across the roads like black ice. I was trying to clear a small fender bender when it happened. I heard the screech, first tires sliding, a horn blasting, and then the crash. It wasn't just any crash, it was the deep, crumpling kind of noise that makes your stomach drop. I spun around just in time to see a black government-issued SUV slam into the side of a delivery truck. Without thinking, I ran toward the wreckage, my boots splashing through puddles. The SUV's driver's side door was wedged shut, and the window was cracked but not shattered. Through the glass, I could see him, a man in a dark blue suit, sitting completely still, his hands on the wheel, his face calm but intense. I banged on the window. "Are you okay?" I shouted. He nodded slowly, then motioned to the lock. I managed to wrench the door open after a struggle. The moment he stepped out, it was like the air around him shifted. Even dazed, he had this aura, powerful, composed, like someone used to being obeyed. "I'm fine," he said, brushing rain off his jacket. His voice was deep, smooth, but commanding. "Just need a moment." Only then did I recognize him. Baltasar Ngonga. I'd seen him on TV, read about him in the papers. He wasn't just some official, he was the man in charge of tracking corruption and financial crime, a figure both respected and feared in Equatorial Guinea. Other drivers were already rubbernecking, pulling out their phones. I waved them off, trying to give him space. He leaned against the SUV, breathing heavily but staying outwardly calm. I called in the accident on my radio, all the while stealing glances at him. He wasn't movie star handsome, but there was something about him, the sharp eyes, the tight set of his jaw that made him impossible to ignore. While waiting for backup, we ended up talking. At first it was just protocol, his name, if he needed medical help, standard questions. But then he started asking me things, too. "How long have you been a traffic officer?" he asked, voice steady despite the chaos around us. 5 years, I replied, wiping rain from my forehead. "Feels like forever some days." He laughed, a low, genuine sound that caught me off guard. I imagine it does. There was something electric about the moment, standing there in the rain, both of us soaked to the skin, people gawking around us, yet somehow locked in our own little bubble. He wasn't treating me like just another officer, like most government men would. He was looking at me, really looking at me, like he saw a person worth noticing. When backup arrived and started managing the scene, he surprised me again. "Let me buy you coffee," he said, his smile slight but real. "It's the least I can do after almost running you over." I should have said no. I had a husband at home, responsibilities. But the words caught in my throat. Before I knew it, I was nodding. We exchanged numbers officially, so he could send over insurance information, he said, and he left with one last lingering glance that made my heart race. That evening, when my shift ended, I found a message on my phone. "Hope you survived the day. Still owe you that coffee." I stared at it for a long time, heart hammering. And then, against my better judgment, I answered. I told myself it was innocent. Just coffee. Just conversation. Nothing more. We met a few days later at a quiet cafe tucked behind an old colonial building, far from the crowded city center. It wasn't the kind of place government officials usually went too low-key, too real. That choice made me like him even more. He was already there when I arrived, seated in a corner booth, his jacket off, sleeves rolled up, looking less like a feared agency leader and more like a man just trying to breathe. When he saw me, his face lit up, not with a big showy smile, but something smaller, more genuine. We talked for hours, about everything and nothing, my work, his pressures, the country, the weather. He asked questions like he really wanted to know the answers, and he listened. God, he listened in a way my husband hadn't in years. The next time we met, it was dinner. Then another coffee. Then walks along the harbor, the humid night air wrapping around us like a heavy blanket. Every time, the space between us got smaller, the looks lingered longer, the touches, a hand brushing against mine, a palm resting too long on the small of my back grew bolder. I could feel myself sliding down a dangerous slope. Each time we said goodbye, I told myself it would be the last time. But the excitement was too much, the way he made me laugh, made me feel seen, made me feel wanted again after so long of feeling invisible. One evening, after another long walk through the winding back streets of Malabo, it happened. We stopped outside my car. The street was quiet, a few streetlights flickering. I was fishing for my keys, my hands trembling slightly, when he spoke. "You're shaking," he said, stepping closer. His voice was low, rough around the edges. "It's just the night air," I lied. He didn't believe me. I could see it in his eyes, those dark, unreadable eyes that had learned to catch every tiny lie in his walk. He reached out and gently took my hands in his. His touch was warm, firm. "Tell me to stop," he said, almost in a whisper. I should have. Every voice of reason inside me screamed it. But I couldn't say anything. I just looked up at him, heart hammering in my chest. He leaned down slowly, giving me every chance to pull away. When his lips finally brushed against mine, it was so soft it was almost nothing. A question. A promise. My breath caught, my body freezing for a moment under the weight of it. And then I kissed him back. It was like a dam breaking. Months, maybe years of loneliness, frustration, longing all flooded out in that single, desperate moment. His hands came up to cradle my face, holding me there like he was afraid I'd vanish. I wrapped my arms around him, pulling him closer, feeling the steady beat of his heart against mine. The kiss deepened, slow and searching, like we were memorizing each other. The world around us disappeared, no husband, no job, no consequences, just him, just us, standing under the broken streetlight in the heart of a sleeping city. When we finally pulled apart, breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. "This wasn't supposed to happen," I whispered. "Maybe it was," he said, voice rough with emotion. And in that moment, I knew I was in trouble, the kind of trouble you don't walk away from unchanged. After that kiss, there was no going back to pretending. No polite smiles or stiff conversations. Something had cracked wide open between us, and we both knew it. For a few days, we kept our distance. He was busy with some investigation, and I buried myself in my traffic control duties, pretending nothing had changed. But every time my phone buzzed, I hoped it was him. Every time I stood in the middle of a hot, chaotic street, I thought of his hands on me, steady and sure. Then one evening, just as the sun was bleeding red over the horizon and the traffic jams were at their worst, I got a message. "Can you meet me? Not public. Somewhere safe." He sent an address, no explanation. I hesitated for a moment, years of discipline, of following the rules, weighing heavy in my chest, but then I tucked my phone away and told my junior officer I was leaving early due to a personal emergency. I lied without even blinking. The address led me deep into the old part of town, a neighborhood even I didn't patrol often. Narrow streets, crumbling walls, heavy shadows. When I found the building, it looked abandoned from the outside, chipped paint, rusted gates, no lights. I thought for a second it might be a trap. But something stronger, curiosity, excitement, pulled me forward. I climbed a dark stairwell to the second floor. The door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open and stepped inside. The apartment was small and dimly lit by a few old lamps, but it was clean, almost carefully so. A couch, a table, some books stacked neatly. It didn't look lived in, more like a secret base than a home. He was standing by the window, watching the street below, hands tucked into his pockets. When he turned to me, his whole face softened. He crossed the room in a few strides and stopped just in front of me, close enough that I could smell the faint scent of his cologne, clean, sharp, unmistakably him. "I'm sorry for being secretive," he said. "I have to be careful. People watch me more than you know." I nodded, my heart pounding hard in my chest. He reached out, brushing his fingers lightly down my arm, sending shivers through my whole body. "I couldn't stop thinking about you." Neither could I. I was supposed to be the senior officer, disciplined, respected, the one who kept calm when everyone else lost their heads. But around him, all that training dissolved like mist. Without another word, he kissed me again, harder this time, full of urgency. My hands found his shoulders, gripping him like I needed him to stay upright. He pulled me deeper into the room, shutting the door behind us, locking it with a soft click. The hidden apartment felt like a world apart, no husbands, no uniforms, no titles. Just us, two people crashing into each other with years of bottled-up hunger. He guided me to the couch, his hands sure and steady, but never rough. He treated me like I was something precious and wild at the same time. I couldn't remember the last time someone had touched me like that, not just wanting me, but seeing me. We didn't rush. Every kiss, every touch felt like it peeled away another layer of the walls we both had built around ourselves. It wasn't just about lust though that burned hot between us, it was about connection, raw and terrifying. Later, when we lay tangled together in the dim light, I traced lazy circles on his chest and listened to his breathing. I shouldn't be here, I whispered, half to myself. He kissed the top of my head. Neither should I. But neither of us moved to leave. In that small, hidden apartment, behind a locked door in a forgotten corner of the city, we carved out a piece of the world where nothing else existed except the dangerous, undeniable pull between us. And in that moment, I knew I wasn't just cheating on my husband. I was stepping into a whole new life, one I couldn't control, one that scared and thrilled me in equal measure. After that night in the hidden apartment, everything changed between us. I went back to my life, my uniform, my street post, my dull and distant marriage, but nothing felt the same. It was like carrying a secret fire inside me. No one could see it, but it burned hotter every day. Baltasar and I became careful. We had to. He was too important, too visible. I was supposed to be respectable, a model senior officer everyone looked up to. One wrong move and we could ruin not just our careers but our lives. He would send coded messages, sometimes just a time or a street name. I'd tell my junior officers I was handling special inspections or VIP traffic details. Always excuses. Always lies. But I barely felt guilty anymore. I was living for those stolen moments. We met in different hidden apartments. He had several, scattered across the city, each one cleaner and quieter than the last. Places no one would think to look for a man like him or a woman like me. One time, I remember getting off duty after a long, exhausting shift. My boots hurt, my shoulders ached from standing in the sun all day, and all I wanted was a shower and some sleep. But then the message came. No explanation. No location. Just a pin on the map. I went without thinking. When I got there, he was already waiting, dressed casually in jeans and a t-shirt, looking more dangerous and more beautiful than ever. As soon as I stepped inside, he grabbed me, not rough, but urgent, like he couldn't stand to waste another second. That night was different. Less slow, less careful. It was messy, desperate. Clothes half off, his mouth hungry on my skin. I still had my police trousers halfway on when he lifted me against the wall. His strength always shocked me, the way he handled me like I weighed nothing, the way he made me forget I had ever been anything but his. Afterward, we lay sprawled on the old mattress, the air hot and sticky between us. He played with a strand of my hair, his expression unusually serious. "You know this can't last forever," he said softly. I nodded. Of course, I knew. We were like two storms colliding, beautiful but doomed to burn out. Still, I whispered, "I don't care." And I meant it. We kept meeting like that, sometimes once a week, sometimes not for a month, depending on how dangerous things got. Sometimes we didn't even speak much. It was all in the way he touched me, the way he looked at me like I was the only thing anchoring him to this messy, brutal world he walked in. In public, we barely acknowledged each other. I'd see him sometimes, Baltasar Ingonga, the powerful leader of the National Financial Investigation Agency, standing next to ministers, ordering raids, giving statements to the press. And I'd smile to myself, knowing that underneath the creased suit and cold authority, there was a man who had once fallen asleep with his head on my chest, breathing my name like a prayer. The risk was part of the thrill. Every secret meeting, every stolen kiss, every hurried goodbye made me feel more alive than I had in years. And still, every time I slipped back into my traffic police uniform, every time I stood on the hot streets and waved cars through, part of me was somewhere else, back in a hidden room, behind a locked door, where Baltasar's hands knew every inch of me and where the real me lived, wild and free. At first, my husband didn't notice anything. He was used to me working long hours. He thought nothing of me being exhausted, distracted, short-tempered. Maybe part of him didn't want to notice. But as the months wore on, the changes in me grew harder to hide. I stopped trying as hard at home. I didn't bother to explain late nights. I barely touched him anymore, and when I did, it felt hollow, mechanical. My mind was somewhere else, somewhere hidden away with Baltasar, in places that smelled of dust and forbidden things. One evening, after a particularly intense meeting with Baltasar, a meeting where I had left my uniform half wrinkled in the backseat of my patrol car, I came home later than usual. My husband was sitting at the kitchen table, arms crossed, untouched dinner in front of him. "You smell different," he said without looking up. I froze. It wasn't just perfume or soap. It was him, the smell of Baltasar's cologne clinging to my skin, the salt of our bodies mingled together. I mumbled something about working near a mechanic's garage all day. He nodded stiffly but said nothing. After that night, the tension started creeping in like a slow, choking fog. He began asking questions. "Why are you always on your phone? Why do you smile to yourself when you think I'm not looking? Why don't you touch me anymore?" The worst part was, I couldn't even muster the energy to lie well. My heart wasn't in it. One Sunday morning, while I was still in bed pretending to sleep, I heard him rummaging through my things. He never used to do that. I lay there, my chest tight, listening as he found my second phone, the one Baltasar and I used, hidden deep in the back of my drawer. Later that day, he confronted me, holding it out like it was a weapon. "Who's Baltasar?" he demanded. I had no good answer. None that wouldn't hurt him. None that wouldn't tear the last shreds of our life apart. So I lied. Badly. I told him he was a government contact, nothing personal, just work. But I saw it in my husband's face, the shift, the cracking of something solid. He didn't believe me. Not really. After that, he started watching me closer. He checked my patrol schedules, called me during shifts. He even once showed up unexpectedly while I was manning a traffic post, sitting in the car across the street, pretending to be just another driver. Watching. I knew it was only a matter of time before he found out the whole truth. And deep down, a part of me didn't even care. Another part, the old, dutiful part, hated myself for it. But by then, the pull toward Baltasar was too strong, too consuming. I was addicted to him, to the danger, to the way he made me feel alive and wanted. My husband was beginning to see the cracks. He just didn't realize yet how deep they ran. Baltasar scandal. The scandal broke like a thunderclap. It was all over the news. Baltasar Ingonga, head of the National Financial Investigation Agency, accused of embezzlement, corruption, money laundering. His face, once so powerful and untouchable, was plastered across every TV screen, every front page. The government moved fast, freezing his assets, raiding his offices, stripping him of everything overnight. I watched it all unfold from the small television in the traffic station lounge, my heart hammering in my chest. I barely heard the other officers muttering around me words like traitor and "he deserves to rot." Inside, I was shaking. Because I knew it was only a matter of time before someone dug deep enough to find me. That night, I stayed late at the station, pretending to finish reports, pretending to be busy while I deleted everything: text, pictures, call logs. But it didn't matter. It was too late. The walls were already closing in. When I finally dragged myself home past midnight, I found my husband waiting in the dark, sitting stiffly in the living room. He didn't say a word at first, just sat there, hands clenched into fists, eyes black with something between fury and heartbreak. On the coffee table in front of him were printouts, dozens of them, showing the bank statements, hidden apartment rentals, and even blurry security photos of me and Baltasar together, holding hands in a shadowed hallway. He had found everything. "You lied to me," he said quietly, his voice so strained it barely sounded human. "You made a fool of me." I opened my mouth, but no words came out. What could I say? "I'm sorry" wasn't even close to enough. He stood up suddenly, knocking the chair back. "How long?" he demanded, his voice rising. "How long were you sneaking around with him while I was here?" His voice broke. I tried to step toward him, but he flinched like I'd slapped him. "I loved you," he said, almost to himself. "I thought you were different. Better." The silence between us was heavier than any shouting match could have been. I could hear him breathing hard, see the way his shoulders shook. "I should have known," he muttered. "You stopped being mine a long time ago." There it was, the ugly truth laid bare. I wanted to explain. I wanted to tell him that it hadn't started with the intention of betraying him, that I hadn't meant to fall so hard, that I had been drowning long before Baltasar ever touched me. But none of that would have mattered to him. And maybe it shouldn't. Without another word, my husband grabbed his car keys and left, slamming the door so hard the picture frames rattled on the walls. I sank onto the couch, feeling utterly hollow. I had lost everything in one night: my marriage, my career, my name. And all for a man who, at that very moment, was probably being dragged through courtrooms, stripped of the power and danger that had once made him so irresistible. I was alone. And worse, I knew deep down a part of me still wanted Baltasar, even if he was destroyed.